Westbury residents in Johannesburg say they live under the constant threat of gang-related violence. The community is buckling under the scourge of gangsterism and drugs. In fact, just this weekend, at least 3 people were reportedly shot. Let's bring in Newzroom Afrika's Nqobile Madlala, who is tracking the story. And Nqobile, you've spoken to residents who have told you that gun violence, particularly over the past few weeks, has spiked.
Yes, so Michelle, a very traumatized community members. From the person that I've spoken to, who is a gentleman who himself has once been shot. He says he was shot on the leg. He says his children are not allowed to to play outside, to walk outside. A simple thing. There's currently a family that also had an incident on Monday, which was last week, where they walked in and shot 2 adults and 2 children, the youngest being 2 years old. That mother, still traumatized. If she relays what happened, she's still in tears, and she's lost her husband due to that, and her husband was wheelchair bound. She says in his death he was trying to protect their children. So it's been very difficult for people to live in that area, but a lot of them just asking for assistance, for more visibility, for more police to come in, to just do more on the ground, which is why now I've got Calvin Rafadi to speak to us, who is, of course, a crime analyst. And I think this is something that's been long-standing, because if you speak to the residents on the ground, they speak about the fact that there's been promises that were made even by the previous minister, Nqobile. But why hasn't there been a change?
Yeah, good day. I think the problem of Westbury and other areas that is connected, like your Sophia Town, Rivoli, you name them. The problem is there's a high number of drugs, and many of our youth in these communities, they are high on drugs. But the problem is that we've been coming out and saying, let us change the station commander, police station commander, because of it shows that clearly they don't know how to channel the information. The data that is being collected, it's a data that must be given to organized crime, to assets forfeiture unit, so that the mastermind, the big fishes who are enabling these particular crimes, most of their staff that is being illicit from trace of these drugs, they must just, assets forfeiture unit must just come and kick in.
But one would imagine already, like you say, that there's a lot of information that has come through, that information would have been used to be able to eliminate the big fishes. So why is this not happening then? What would be the reason behind it all?
Yeah, look, so far we learned that, there've been tax team coming into the area, but it's not yielding results, because we go around in circle. And what we can say is that now there's anti-gang unit that is operating in the area, but also, the very same anti-gang unit, some of the community members, they say, no, they are one-sided. They feel that, they cater for certain individuals in the area. So we call upon all stakeholders, including social development, because we realize that most of these big fishes, they test drugs on these kids, especially the ones that are under 16 years. And once they do that, these kids, they become addictive. They now go and give them guns to fight for thefts, to a point that even some of their parents, even they when they pass on, they inherit some of their homes or even properties. This particular big gangs now, what they do, they come and buy those properties for cheap amount. But guess what? They don't even stay in this area. They stay in the suburbs. Their life is continuing. They are safe there. They only come into the area to deliver drugs, to deliver even guns, so that the small kids can now fight for theft. Now, the reason why they choose 16 euros is because of when the procedure of court is that these kids now, under social development, they go under juvenile and they are released.
Do we have enough, though? Let's say the police, do they have enough to finally eliminate the gang violence? Because Westbury may be an example today, but there are various other communities. Look at Cape Flats, for example. Do we have enough then, willpower and also the amount of experience to eliminate gang violence in terms of the police side?
Yeah, like I say, crime intelligence is the one that collects the data, is the one that must analyze the data. But obviously, there are challenges, especially when you don't know what you are dealing with. Like now, for instance, in Westbury, what we have collected, the data that we know, or the research that we have done on the ground, is that some of these criminals, even parents or elderly, they enable these crimes. Like, for instance, you see some old lady or old man sitting next to a particular flat. You're thinking that, okay, the police are going to raid a drug lab or a drug house, only to find out they send some of them, they send SMS to enable those particular drug lords to dispose of drugs. And those are some of the challenges that, the dynamics that police need to be aware that even the communities, some of them, they aid and abet. But the relevant information must be collected, and we call upon Assets Forfeiture Unit, because some of the big fishes, they own dealerships, they own construction companies. But where do they get the money? They get it from selling these particular drugs and fighting for theft, because all of this gangs violence is about fighting for thefts.
And lastly, there's kids here caught in the crossfire. 2-year-old in particular that's currently in hospital because of this. Various other people that have passed on because of this. What would be the solution?
On the aftermath of such events, which is a horrific event, police have to investigate. And we also say, please investigate thoroughly this particular case. Do not take, for instance, that this was part of the revenge, so and so, after you profile maybe one member of the family that, no, he was belonging into the gang. Do not use that opportunity of, profiling and taking this matter as one of those, that it was just a revenge. Innocent kids got shot, and it's attempted murder and a murder case. Let's investigate it thoroughly.
Thank you very much. That is crime analyst speaking to us, Michelle, about the issues that are relating to the gang violence that we're seeing in the community of Westbury. We know that when they speak to us, they say that the people that are now affected are not necessarily part of the gangs. However, they do feel that there's quite a lot that comes from the gangs, and they are the ones that are part of what is taking place in the community. And now people who are not even part of those are affected.
Nqobile, Madlala, thanks very much for that conversation, and it's one that we have, it feels like, around in circles over and over again, the scourge of drugs and gang violence in particular communities.